Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. RFK Refugees Podcast. Ted here, John here, welcoming you in to 2022. 2022 with a bang. All good news. All good news, right, John? No bad news. No bad news to talk about.
None. Never. With these teams? Absolutely not. Never could happen.
We do have some good, exciting news coming. We are going to have the awesome and wonderful Travis Clark coming onto the show to preview the MLS SuperDraft. But before we get into that, John, we have a bit of news we're going to drop. A bit of changes. Change is sometimes a good thing.
It is. Yeah, we're excited about it. So we're not going to get all the way into it, but we talked about it before the break, sort of teased that there would be changes. We can get into that a little bit more than we did then. Basically this. People don't have as much time to listen to really long podcasts as they used to. And we've been talking about ways to improve the podcast, ways to make it fit into everyone's sort of new normal now that everyone is, or many people have sort of changed what their work life is like and their commute life is like. So the plan is to make things a little bit easier to listen to, make things a little bit more tighter, streamlined, professional, and easy to digest. So in about 2 weeks, we're going to have a pretty big exciting launch for all you guys. This show right now, as it is, will never go away. So if you're on here and you love us on Twitch and you want to show us you love us by renewing your Prime subscription, please feel free. I just did that now before the show started. Just go down to the box where it says gift a subscription or subscribe. Click the link, and if you have Amazon Prime at the bottom, it'll let you say use Amazon Prime, and you can give us a free subscription. But that will be staying the same. So no matter what, at 8:30, you will always be able to catch us Monday night talking Spirit and talking DC United. But in 2 weeks, make sure you're listening, and we will. Try. You'll hear it no matter where you're at. If you're on Twitter, Facebook, whatever else, you're gonna hear what the new plans is. The release will be wide, so get ready for that.
Yes, yeah, we're excited about this. We've had a lot of discussions about how to make the show better, how to better deliver content, all the great DC soccer content that you wanted to. Riss Willis says, let's not take a look at my bingo card for 2022. So, yeah, we're gonna get into that, and we should probably get into that right now. Let's do it. Spirit, things are not great, I think is the easiest way to say it. Basically, as you heard here first on RFK Refugees, John with the source scoop there. The basic deal to sign to Boley and St. James offer is basically pretty much going to go through for the Washington Spirit. John, you've been maybe
that's
a little
right.
more clued in.
I'm the Adam Schefter of
yes.
This. So it appears that for all of the conversation around Michelle Kang's offer being 40% more, which is $35 million, it really appears that Steve Baldwin's going to sell this team to the Boley Group and St. James Group, regardless. That is not news that I think anyone is welcoming. The players have met with this group where they were not impressed, according to the Washington Post. The players have made it very clear who they want, and they want Michelle Kang as the owner. The fans have been very clear about who they want. The supporters groups who have been asked to meet with this group in sort of the in-between time, I think to sort of do a little bit of PR smoothing, are not impressed, and some of them don't want to meet at all. So the situation is, it appears that Steve Baldwin and Bill Lynch are gonna do what they want. This has become a thing about personalities and stubbornness, and I have the power to do this, and the league's not going to stop me, and it's going to go through. There's a threat of a lawsuit. Certainly something to look at. Ted and I were re-examining that right before the show. One note about that. So there was obviously the some of the investors, some of the minority group sent a letter to Steve Baldwin saying, we reserve all rights to sue basically on this, as you take a less than highest offer, which is absurd. But we reserve the right to sue. The challenge here, we just noticed that only 4 of those minority owners signed this letter. So it is not all of them. It is not the famous people that you know. It's not Alex Ovechkin. It's not Chelsea Clinton. It's not those people. It's Tom Daschle, his wife, Bonnie McElveen Hunter, and Estee Portnoy, Michael Jordan's longtime business associate or manager. So it's not a unified front. Not every single person, particularly the people that you would want to have the bully pulpit, they are not making a lot of noise on this. And reporting today by The Athletic says that the other owners in NWSL are speculation, I think, is that they are not interested in empowering the league to make decisions about sales due to owner intransigence or bad behavior, because many of the owners have done something bad in the last year. So they don't want to sort of like sign their own death warrant on things like that. So that's where we sit now.
This appears to me we want to avoid a Dan Borislaw situation. And if you don't know who Dan Borislaw is, because maybe some people don't, he was the owner. Funny enough, the owner of bought the Washington Freedom at the time for the WPS, moved them to some city in Florida, renamed them Magic Jack FC. Go Google it if you want the story. But the story is basically he suffered. There was a lot of abusive related ownership comments that he made towards players. There were emails that were leaked. I probably maybe things that were worse than what we saw from what we've seen from the Spirit and everything else, though it's hard to imagine that. And basically the league pushed him out, said, nope, you're done. We're relinquishing your rights to own a team. He then sued the league and the league folded. I feel like this is maybe going into the mindset. Something else I thought about too. Everybody is cued in on Michelle Kang's offer of $35 million and how this is taking less. Do you think maybe this is yes, we understand that the obvious thing is like someone offers more money for something, you take it. And I'm not saying that's necessarily this is the right move or the wrong move. I do wonder, is this a move by the league to keep the valuations of their teams down for now in an effort to stave off any sort of like collective bargaining agreement type negotiation where the players say, hey, you the Spirit just sold for $35 million. We want, 3% of that, or we want 4 or 5% of that.
Ted, that's a good point, because they are still negotiating that first contract with the players, with the NWSL Players Union. So that I think there is something to that. But honestly, the challenge here too is that there is a law, and this was mentioned in the chat. There is a lawsuit in motion. It appears. Beth Wilkinson, who was the lawyer who looked at the workplace misconduct and sexual harassment suit in the Washington football team, coincidentally, that led to no one being fired and nothing changing, and the owner and Dan Snyder still owning the team and everything else good still happening to him. But she is now sort of heading the legal group that's looking at this. She appears to be taking the public tack that this is a gender issue. And I think from a PR perspective, that's a very good avenue to take, particularly with all the things that have happened this year. I think it's up in the air about motivation. It could be, could just be ego and spite. And someone says, you got to do this thing. And then you dig your heels and say, I'm a rich guy. You can't tell me to do anything. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take less money to spite you. So it's tough. But I think from the standpoint of like how you try some of this in the court of public opinion, and that's a good play. I think that's probably good to do. Honestly, I'm just not optimistic about. I'm not a lawyer. Ted's not a lawyer. We're not lawyers. But I am not optimistic about this lawsuit or threat of lawsuit changing things, changing the outcome. I feel like the sale's going to go through pretty quickly.
Oh yeah. I think the idea is, and I think this is what was hinted in the article, is that basically the league is like, go ahead, Steve, do what you want, get out of here. And you know what? You can be sued. I mean, basically the lawsuits would involve minority owners suing Steve Baldwin, not minority owners suing the league, at least not yet. It seems like the basis of this is being directed at Steve Baldwin. So from a league perspective, he's gone, he's done. He can go do what he can go do what he wants. And then he's the one who's being held liable because he's the one who's driving this. And maybe Bill Lynch plays a role in it as well. I'm not sure what the extent of the lawsuit will be, but certainly, I mean, this is still cowardice from the league. It still shows all the horrible things about how the players literally advocated for one of the other owners, said, we want Michelle Kang as the owner, we want to sell, and just how little say those have, how little say fans have, everything. So,
and you mentioned the league sort of being the next partner or the next element of this issue, and Rose Room Collective sent a letter to the NWSL commissioner, basically saying you need to step in here. The bylaws indicate that you can. The players have spoken, the fans have spoken, the supporter groups have spoken, the offer is on the table, and she's already been vetted as an owner because she's a current owner. She's a 30% owner already in the team, and local market, all the elements that basically say why she should be the person. So that letter was sent. I know that they had an effort to sort of encourage other people to do the same. Basically, I think it was in response to people getting very mad and tweeting at the Washington Spirit handle to yell at Steve Baldwin, which is ineffective. I would say not an effective means of direct action. He has shown that not to really be the thing. But Twitter lit up about this. I think I'm hoping it's not too late. I'm hoping that if it is too late, that the lawsuit that does eventually get authored, if it does, is able to relitigate this thing, or at least, as someone said in the chat, maybe have some things out in discovery about this process and what was actually said and what offers were actually made. We'll see. It's certainly not over. The NWSL would like this to be over and no one to be mad and everyone to just buy tickets and shut up. And if Twitter is any indicator, and everyone, I think that Pablo makes a joke all the time about canceling your season tickets on Twitter and how you do it multiple times in off season. But as you'll see at the break here, quite a few people said that. So maybe that is true. I don't know how many they can afford to lose.
I think again, the saddest thing about this is I think the NWSL, the owners, and everyone else, foolishly or not, think that, and probably in my opinion, foolishly, obviously, they think, and I don't know how much right they look at the 100 people screaming at them at Twitter and think that doesn't represent the majority of their fan base, even though it might be the most vocal part of their fan base. It doesn't recommend, it doesn't. As John apparently has vanished.
I'm here. Nope, I'm here.
Your video went away, buddy.
I'm still here. I'm in the dark.
But basically that they think that they can get away with this because they think that they will still get the same people that show up. They think the family who buys season tickets isn't paying attention. I mean, it does take a certain sense to be, I guess, engaged in this situation and to be actively involved and everything like that and to keep up with it. There's a reason, like, you read these stories and almost like 2/3 of the story before they get to the information you actually want to hear is a summary of everything that's happened. When you read any story in the Athletic and any story in the Washington Post, and it's not to say that, like, I'm not saying that people, I'm not saying that people will necessarily, like, the people on Twitter don't matter. I'm saying that's what the league thinks and that's what ownership thinks. I'm curious to see what happens as far as what the atmosphere looks like in the stadium come opening kick when this group is announced, or if there's any path forward for the team at all. It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like it at all.
Believe it or not, though, with all these things that are happening, the team continues to sign players and evolve and sell players. So we probably should also address those things. The biggest move that happened this week, Sayori Takarada was sold to Linköping FC in Sweden for a small fee, which is great. I was able to verify that there was actually money involved with that because she was still under contract for another season. She played in 10 matches last season. She missed a lot of time for international duty with Japan. She started 6 matches. Other than the international duty, the challenge was when she came to the Spirit, she was a forward. She played forward a lot for her club team previously, but her national team coach was like, we're going to play her at center back. Could you play her at center back? And then Richie basically at that time agreed to do that. So unfortunately, she never really settled in. I think she struggled to really make an impact on the team, and I think she wanted to go somewhere to make sure that she was going to be playing on a regular basis for her future international career. So I don't blame her that. Other players who got re-signed, Morgan Goff and Taylor Aylmer, both got 1-year contracts with a club option. Aylmer played more games. She played. Goff played no games. Aylmer played 7 games, scored once against OL Reign, had 1 assist. Certainly featured much more in the back half of the season as players were either injured or had COVID or any of the things that were going on, and did well enough to earn that contract. Morgan Goff, sort of more of a developmental player at this point, making up the numbers. And the big winner was Ashley Hatch, who cashed in. I assume the financial issues were not disclosed, but cashed in on her Golden Boot season with a 2-year contract and a club option. So she has committed her future, the near-term future, to the Spirit, which is great because she really came into her own last year. She is now getting noticed by the national team. All things are headed in the right direction for her. This was past, so this was sort of previously in the middle of the year, or the middle of last month. But the Spirit also traded for Gabby Vincent from the KC Current. I believe it was a draft pick for next year. She appeared in 16 matches, played defensive midfield, and the idea there is we need cover for Andy Sullivan during the many, many international games that will happen this year. So it's good that we have that. She's a solid player, not going to bring the offensive element that Andy does, the two-way game she does, but you need cover in that position. Particularly Julie Rotter now having to play left back most likely, with Tegan McGrady being sold or traded. And then the last thing about the Spirit, we want to make sure preseason starts February 1. So not that long until the season is going. The good thing for the Spirit is there's not a lot of turnover. They were a young team when they won the championship. They were ahead of schedule. So what that means is they are better positioned than probably almost any other team to hit the ground running. There's been a lot of changes around the league here in the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, particularly with the two new expansion clubs. But even beyond that, and some of those trades today, which we'll get into, it is a period of tumult for a lot of these teams. But the Spirit are basically saying, we're going to run it back. We may have 1 or 2 changes, but we kept our core intact. We kept our young players. We're ready to beat y'all again, and this time not have to take two forfeits.
Yeah, hopefully everything stays off. I mean, obviously the big trade. Actually, the big trade I think you talk about is Lynn Williams going to the KC Current, $200K and a draft pick. That was probably the most major trade that we saw from the NWSL time. And again, I feel almost really disappointed because this is a trade. We talk a lot about in this league about how players don't stick around. Like, we talk about Tori Huster being around the Spirit forever, and she is like the absolute outlier when it comes to NWSL players. Yep. Players like get traded and shifted around all the time. I feel so, again, as I think Speedy 12 says, feel really bad for Courage fans in this regard. Of the Spirit news, I think, like you said, they held on to the players they need to hang on to. I thought was really good. I think the Gabby Vincent trade.
Depth.
That was depth. Yep, definitely depth. Especially with Andy Sullivan, being in international duty. So I'm really kind of excited I'm on the field. I am excited for this team. I think it's going to be exciting to watch them sort of defend their crown this year for sure.
That's the wild part too, right? Is that they're fighting their own off the field shenanigans. It should be all good vibes. They won the freaking championship, and they're returning 10 of the starters probably. Tegan obviously started that game and is now in San Diego, but they're ready to repeat. So it's a bummer that we're really and beyond the one. So let's just run down all the things that have happened. I put together, and this is by all means not exhaustive. There have been some other moves that have happened and some before this, but let me just run down some of the big names that have moved in the NWSL in the last, say, month. As we said today, Lynn Williams to the Kansas City Current for $200,000 and a draft pick in allocation funds. Jess McDonald, also from the Courage, to Racing for a first-round draft pick. Savannah McCaskill from Racing to Angel City for a first-rounder next year. Alex Morgan, big name there, Alex Morgan to San Diego for $275,000 and a player. Christy Mewis to Gotham for $200,000. Allie Krieger and Ashlyn Harris also to Gotham for a first round and a third round. Orlando doing a major retool, I think you could say. Them and North Carolina are the two teams that are really sort of tearing down to the studs and trying to accumulate draft picks and young players, sort of seeing the way the Spirit went. Simone Charlie and Tyler Lucy, I don't want to get the name wrong, to Angel City. That was for draft protection, for $100,000, a draft pick and draft protection. And that is the player that was drafted. I don't have her name, and I don't really care to look it up. Who was drafted, who had very bad tweets, and is now not going to be playing for the team. So they gave up Simone Charlie. I'm not sure if she was an every game starter, but she certainly played a lot for nothing. Like, they literally just lit that money. They lit it on fire, unfortunately. And then Julie Ertz and Sarah Gordon, the Chicago Red Stars exodus to Angel Cities, again, just for draft protection. So it's wild. It's wild. all of the moves that have happened. I think that's pretty common in this league. Like you said, no one is signing long leases here. Everyone's going year to year on their apartments, unfortunately. But it's a good spot for the Spirit to be in. All of this change creates chaos that we don't have to deal with. So that's good stuff.
Yeah. And we'll see. I mean, a lot of teams. I mean, I think you have to look at Gotham potentially getting a lot better. Certainly, obviously, we have the new team, Angel City. They're certainly looking to spend money, so to speak. And I think I'll be curious to see, how the Spirit adapt. Are they going to continue down this same path? Because I mean, there's a lot of big name talent that's moving to new teams. I think has been the order of the day, particularly Ali Krieger and Ashlyn Harris, who probably come as like a package deal. That probably has to be like, you're going to trade Ali Krieger, you got to trade Ashlyn Harris as well, considering they live together. So certainly a package deal there.
They got a good deal there. They're old. I mean, they're obviously older on the older side, but the return was not really great for two starters. Basically, what's going to be, I mean, Orlando obviously is. I mean, they have Taylor Korniak is a great player. Sidney LaRue is still there and had a great year last year. There are other players that are on that team that can make a difference. Obviously, Marta. There are still players there, but Orlando is definitely saying we need to go at this again. I'm very excited to see what these new teams can do. Kim McCauley has put together quite a team out there in Angels in Los Angeles. That is maybe the coolest thing to me.
Yeah.
About this league is someone that you and I and everyone else has talked to on Twitter or had on podcasts or written with is assembling a professional sports franchise based on extensive knowledge of analytics. Like that's pretty wild stuff. I can't get over that.
Yeah, and curious to get some more insight into analytics. I definitely, that is one avenue I am more interested in exploring. All this controversy with the league. I think they're on CBS this year. That's a multi-year contract they have with CBS, I believe. Correct?
Good. Yes,
and I think
they want to improve it. I know that they wanted to spend more money on the. They wanted to spend more money on the broadcast, I believe. So it doesn't look like it's being broadcast on an iPhone 4. But remains to be seen, and hopefully more games on the regular CBS. That would be good for everyone. I was surprised they're doing the Challenge Cup.
Yeah,
again.
we don't have a schedule yet, but we do have a upcoming the Challenge Cup. Yeah.
Yep. The Challenge Cup. The Challenge Cup is once again a preseason tournament, which based on all the interviews we've had over and over again. The players they're not big fans of that. Coaches are not big fans of that, but the league loves it. And so it shall continue. I'm just hoping for, the Spirit have major players coming off of injury. Bailey Feist coming off of a full season injury. Jordan DiBiase basically played no games. And Jordan Collins, I believe, is the other one that was on a full season injury. These are, Bailey Feist will fit in right away if she's healthy. She's a player that very well likely could be starting. So great to see. That's another. The rich get richer here. The Spirit are deep and young and talented, and they're getting back players who can fit right in, regardless of the system. Chris Ward has a great team at his disposal, and I don't think we got into this, but Chris Ward is gonna be. We're gonna have a chance to interview Chris before the season starts. So look forward to that here in the coming weeks, and let us know too. All of our chatters and people who follow us on Twitter, get your questions in about the season to come and how last year went. I think that Chris has had a great half a season. Played that into, I don't know if it's a multi-year contract. We'll get into that, but played himself into a position to control the team or to lead the team here in 2022, and it's excited. Yeah, and so that's the Spirit are in a good position, other than off the field, other than all the people who are not wanting to renew tickets. From the chat here, we've got some news that the schedule is set and is being sent out to ticketing sites soon, which is good. I think everyone has basically said Meg Linehan is the source for everyone to yell at and say, where is the schedule? So I think she'll be happy for that to be out. And a lot of folks are talking about season tickets, even in the chat here, about some have renewed. They renewed early. Some have the chance still to not renew. Some are waiting still. That is the only leverage you have as a fan, right? To make your displeasure known is to not spend money with the team. You can tweet at the team. That is not helpful. You can not spend money, and that's much more helpful. And if you have the ability to sort of, I think what the Rose Room Collective has done, getting media attention on sort of collected disgruntledness is the way to do things. Is the only way to get noticed. Steve Baldwin obviously doesn't care. He's on his own mission. He is a man on his own path now. But everyone else cares. I think the league cares about sort of what the perception is. They are PR focused right now. They may not always be, and they may not. They have a really great reputation for that, right? They have a great reputation for caring a lot about what people think of them. But right now they're sensitive to it. So,
yeah, we'll see. And I think you raised a great point. I mean, I think with season tickets, that's the best way to send a message. If you want to send a message you're not happy with ownership, that you're not happy with what's going on, you need to do that with your wallet. I don't know, boycotting merch maybe, but also doing that's hard to do when they don't have any for sale, when you can't get a freaking jersey. Yeah. Buy from breaking.com if you want, because those actually support the NWSL Players Association, not the players, and they have some much cooler gear out there. I got my wife an awesome Trinity Rodman shirt, who is her favorite player, so that was one of my Christmas gifts. So
I just want to spend money. I just want to give them money, and they've obviously. I don't blame anyone with the team, but they've got to figure that part out. That's got to change. If anything else, you can't even protest, because right now there's no one to not buy from. It just doesn't exist other than Breaking Tea. That's just the way that goes. But I think, Spirit fans, it's a rough week. It's going to be a rough month, I think, and then maybe a little bit longer. The game starting might be I don't want to tell any fan how to do anything. I don't think that's the worst thing you can do. But the players are obviously still the players. The players are still going to need support. You got to figure out how you're going to do that, particularly if you don't want to buy season tickets. But the good thing will be there are games coming pretty soon. So that is the escape. That was the escape all last year. That is the escape here in 2022. You know that you can watch this team and feel good about these players and the way they play. You can put all the other stuff to the side the best you can, but know that that's coming soon at least. And that will make you feel a little bit better, hopefully. It'll make me feel a little bit better to be able to concentrate on results and the players. Trinity Rodman's second season. Can Ashley Hatch score double digits again? What does Bailey Feist look like coming back from an ACL injury? Lots of money, lots of storylines that you can follow that make this an exciting potential season.
Yep, and also as Rich Willett points out, you can donate to the Black Women's Players Collective. Is another place you can donate your money and time to. So certainly there are plenty of great avenues for support. All right, y'all. I think that's going to do it for the first segment of the show. We're going to take a break now. We've never done this before. First time. Maybe not first time.
I'm going to do my taxes.
Yes. Be back in 5 minutes, guys. Stick around. You're listening to the RFK Refugees Podcast. Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, RFK Refugees Podcast. Ted here, John here. As always, is an annual tradition when it comes to the preseason draft time, college draft, soccer draft. We invite Travis Clark onto the show, who covers the game and is awesome about it. Travis, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I forget. I honestly blanked on who you write for now. I apologize.
Top Drawer Soccer, man.
It's still Top Drawer Soccer. Okay, I apologize. That's my fault. I blanked out there for a second, and I should know that. I apologize.
Okay. I'm just gonna hang up now. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. That's right. You got the plug. You got the plug out of me, so you can go now. So, yes. MLS SuperDraft. How impactful is this season going to be? I think, for new fans of the league or for DC United, or I guess just the league in general, how compare the MLS SuperDraft to, say, the NFL draft for a new fan. How likely is it that these players are going to contribute from year one and onward if you're sort of new to this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's completely different. It's like apples and oranges, or two very different things, because in NFL, NBA, which is probably the two big drafts, quote unquote, that's kind of the main way you bring players in, right? All players join teams via free agencies or drafts, whereas in soccer, it's obviously global. So, the MLS draft, the combination of sort of the ability to bring players in from elsewhere and the evolution of the homegrown and the growth of that system, it's just a very minor part of what MLS teams do. Now, is it totally irrelevant? Some would say yes. Others would say, well, hang on, maybe
The
not,
Philadelphia
because
Union
look at
would
the
say
revolution.
yes.
The Philadelphia Union say yes. The Toronto FC more or less says yes. But the Revolution, which won the Supporter Shield, they had, I believe it was like 6 or 7 of their starters / key players all joined MLS via the draft. So, you had guys like Tejan Buchanan, you had Henry Kessler, their center back, Tommy McNamara played a lot of minutes for them, Brandon Bye, Matt Turner even. These are guys who played college soccer for 2, 3, 4 years. And then, so I think the best way to put it is, it is what it is right now. It's not a hugely important piece in the process, but you can find a difference maker. If you try if you do a little bit of work, bring players in with a plan, a way to develop them, and then that player is then good enough to make the most of the opportunity to develop and then contribute to your team. So it's convoluted, and it's not like, oh, I'm going to bring all these players into the draft. It's, you're lucky if a year on after the draft that player's still with you. So DC is an easy example. Number 4 pick overall, Karani Smith. I believe he's still on the roster. I could be mistaken.
He
You
is.
guys can correct me, but I do know they traded into the draft number 5, Michael DeShields, and he's not on the team anymore. I don't know if he even ever played for the team last year, but
He did. A couple games for Loud in the beginning of the year.
It's a good example of the. It's a bit of a crapshoot, but at the end of the day, there are special players that are still joining the league. National team players, Miles Robinson, Walker Zimmerman. Like, they're not. It's not a total meaningless event, and I do think it's good though that they moved it away from being this like big, in-person event. Part of that's probably the pandemic, but part of it is, it should be more like the MLB draft, if you will. I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to bring that up a bit. I want to talk a little bit about the last draft. You kind of brought it up a little bit. I always feel like there's been like sort of like this slow dwindling. Like everybody talked about it first. It was the big event. I think I agree with you. I'm glad it's a smaller event. But I kind of miss the whole like pop-up circumstance with the coaches. I've been to some of the drafts when they were in Baltimore and close by. And it was kind of a cool event to see like all the coaches in MLS kind of hanging around. You would see stuff happening on the floor. So in that aspect, it was kind of fun. But
it was good for nerds.
Yeah, it was good for nerds. It was good for nerds like me. But there's been this dwindling. Yeah. First, it's like your main way to build talent. Then it's like, well, you can still find good talent. Well, maybe you like the top few picks, you'll find good talent. I would say that this past draft. I was kind of looking through it. I kind of got to the end of the year and I'm like, I can't remember anybody really coming through the draft who really made a difference. Was this maybe an aspect of the COVID year? Was this an aspect of, all the craziness that was going on there? Or do you think maybe this is kind of, we're going to have more years like last year where it's like nobody really makes an impact? Now, someone could come in this year, Daniel Pereira for Austin could absolutely light it up this year and make me look foolish, but that's kind of what it's starting to feel like, especially after last year.
Yeah, I do wonder that part of that is probably the COVID element of it. Part of it is the draft classes ebb and flow. I'm looking at this year's pool and thinking that it's actually a little bit better, and just there's like center backs for days. I feel like you could have 28 picks in the round, and you can have just pick all center backs. Another element to it is the Generation Adidas class is a bit bigger this year. There's 8 players who are underclassmen. that are available, and they have that roster flexibility that, there's only one expansion team, obviously, so that'll limit the chances for a college guy to get on a field and play that. But it's not, I think that the drafts now are going to be more of it's going to take a year or two for these guys to get in, to bed in, and whether or not the teams will have the patience for it. But yeah, because what Ted has said is true. Like, you look at the top 10 picks, 3 of the top 10 picks didn't have their option picked up in Josh Penn, Derek Dodson, and Michael DeShields. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure off the top of my head, because I was doing a little bit of that sort of research as well. Philip Mayaka was parked in the USL Championship, I think, for the duration of the season for the Rapids, and Calvin Harris, he's not going to save FC Cincinnati from itself. It should be noted, shout out to FC Cincinnati picking number 2 overall yet again, which is hilarious to me. But, will this year's group be any different than that? I feel like they could be, but it's always going to be difficult for first-year players to come in right away. I think there will be exceptions, not necessarily in this draft, but a lot of it can come down to the opportunity the players even get at this point, which, as we've seen, have become more and more limited, even though there is a new league entering the fray as well.
I think it would be interesting if teams started looking at this draft, like you said, understanding that there's an exception that's going to make an impact at your MLS club level, but instead being like, this is for our second division team, basically. MLS next or whatever in 2 years, but basically we're going to give these people a year or two. We're understanding that there's a development delay, and that if they were really good, they would have been signed to a homegrown. There would have been some other mechanism for them to have been identified early and brought in. But I think if you're the union and you just change perspective of like, all right, well, this is a low cost way for us to add a young player to our USL Championship, where we're gonna have their control if they do pan out for the completely unfair term of an MLS contract of like 5 years if they want it for the first contract. So I don't know. I think that's just a mindset shift that would improve the utilization of the draft. Maybe
yeah, I mean, I don't think any solution is perfect, because the other piece to it is when you look at a team building, your supplemental back-end roster spots are going to mostly go to your academy guys. And what would you rather have in that spot? A 22 or 23-year-old who's played 4 years of college soccer, and no disrespect, is probably a fine player, but that player is not going to have, or would you rather have like a 16 or 17-year-old prospect that could be maybe a future national team, or viewed that way at least, even though you never know how things are going to work out, or a player that could really blossom and grow and then become an asset that you then make millions of dollars off, right? Those are the kind of, I guess, tug of war is a good way that they can approach it. And obviously looking towards the upside play is always going to win out, especially when you're talking about a global industry where, even though, like I said I may have said this, but it might have been another podcast that I was on, but we had Tejan Buchanan, Daryl DK, Richie Larea have all been transferred abroad in this transfer window. They all signed with clubs in England and Buchanan is in Belgium. But they all went for transfer fees that made their clubs. The clubs got them for free, even though Larea was drafted by Orlando, not Toronto. Should be worth noting. But there are exceptions, and I think there will continue to be, and it's a matter of doing your homework, finding the right player, looking for the upside play, and then putting in the development work, and hopefully the player does the same.
Let's talk about the home team here. So DC United picks 13 overall in the first round, and 69th in the third round. They traded their second pick to Seattle last year for Tony Alfaro. So I would ask you, what does DC United need? The answer there is almost anything. But looking at this draft class and looking where they end up in the order, where in your version 12 of the mock now, where do you see DC United going in that early the third round? Who knows? But for that 13th pick, where are you thinking they go?
I think you could go with a goalkeeper. It's one of the Generation Adidas. You have two Generation Adidas, Patrick Schulte and Roman Celentano. It's so hard to know, right? Because obviously I can't read anybody's minds, but the logical thing doesn't always happen. It is worth pointing out too that a player with DC United Academy ties, Dane Jacoman, spotted by Matt Ralph, he played at the University of Pennsylvania. Dane did, not Matt Ralph. But Dane Jacoman is a DC United Academy product that played for Penn, and has announced that he's beginning his professional career, and he is not on the draft list. So you could add that up and say, well, I think DC United are rolling the dice on this player. So then, do they then sign a homegrown player and take the Generation Adidas goalkeeper? I think that could change it. I mean, do they need a center back? There are a lot of those. You could go with the center back.
They do.
Probably can go wrong. Especially you're probably not going to find an Andy Nahar replacement. So
No.
Well, hopefully we don't need to replace him, Travis. That's let's not even go down that. Let's not entertain that possibility. But yeah, I think the homegrown. So obviously, DC United needs at least 2 goalkeepers, right? A guy who played at Penn and was
you should have it.
No, well, right now they only have 1 under contract, so they probably need
Right.
at least 2 more. I'm wondering, sort of. I feel like the John Kempen role is one you could fill with a guy who was playing USL League One last year. I think that's comfortable. The Chris Seitz spot, unless they were going to say we're going to take the Generation Adidas player and put him in Loudon. I feel like I don't know if that's the move they make too. But so goalkeeper makes sense because they have a need. I just wonder too, like you said, if they're able to take the homegrown. There's a lot of other things they need. You had a guy named Thor. I don't remember his last name. Somehow, for some reason, the first name stuck out as a forward, being in the mock. They definitely need help there too as well. Can you talk a bit about? I'm sorry, I forget his last name.
Thor Ulferson. I can't even say it, even though it doesn't look hard. Thor Ulferson is a player responsible for perhaps the most famous clip that circulated relating to men's or women's college soccer in the fall of 2021. I don't know if either of you guys saw it, but basically, he was a Duke striker. He scored a bunch of goals, 15 and 16 games, I believe, in the fall. So, in their tournament game against UCLA, Duke played up the man for a while, scored a goal to win. Basically, they scored twice in the last 4 minutes or something. Real heartbreak for UCLA. So Thor, who's from Iceland, goes over and does some kind of weird mocking thing. I think him and the goalie must have been at it too much of the game, and so does some super immature taunting, which was, and then he gets laid. He gets basically decked as he's walking back from He didn't even score the goal. He's taunting after his team scored, right? And then he gets cleaned out by the UCLA center back, who gets a red card, a brouhaha, and follows. So I don't know how he does outside the box. I don't know if you want a guy who will get on the end of chances. I think maybe he could work. I'm not super sold. I think MLS teams are pretty high on him, so there's a good chance he's gone by the time VC picks. But when I made that first mock draft, I hadn't gotten that sort of sense. So I don't think Thor will be on the table, and the jokes will not be available for you all this year.
That's unfortunate. That is unfortunate. I'm very upset to hear that.
The TIFO would be fantastic. Wanted to, while we do have you here, and obviously you cover the college game. You also cover a lot of the youth games. So I did want to touch a little bit on DC's Academy, and just kind of real quick. So we have all talked about DC's Academy. They struck gold with Andy Nahar and Bill Hamid. And it was not a whole lot in between them, maybe a couple role players. But this feels like a genuine renaissance. When you have one player getting, pointed out by English magazines as being one of the top 100 players in the world, you have obviously the amazing strides Kevin Paredes has made. This feels a little bit different. Have you noticed any sort of, I guess, when you've watched the Academy over the years, have you noticed a change in mentality, talent level, or is this maybe just kind of another, we're going to have this phase where we're going to get all this talent in, and then it's going to be kind of another doldrum for 10 years? And I know it's impossible to predict that, but I'm going to ask you anyway, because you're amazing.
Yeah, I think that there'll be some obstacles that will be interesting to watch play out. So first of all, you have the new training facility, which looks pretty nice, right? But it's in Leesburg. And so listeners probably know the geography of DC. So how many top-level players are going to make that commute to Leesburg from, and one of the interesting elements to DC United is that a lot of their top players have come from PG County. So that's a long way to go, right? Not that you can only bring in PG County players, but that's been one of the trends that I've observed over the years. I do think that at least some impetus is being put into it. They hired the New England Revolution guy to run the place here. It's just a matter of how many resources the ownership is willing to allocate to it. If, let's say Paredes or Moses Nyman become transfer targets and move abroad soon. Both are 18 now. They're 19 this year, I believe. So that could be on the table for sure. It's just a matter of continuing to put that kind of a work in and recruit the right kind of talent. Should I just rattle off a bunch of cliches about coaching and running?
Yeah.
That's the best answer. That's the best way to answer it. Just try and put money into it and do it well as best you can. And I think you have the area that you should be much better than you are. And you could even argue that the academy is nowhere near. You've got to make a good case for why. Bethesda still strikes me as a more consistent club in turning out D1 talent. I do not measure teams by the amount of college players they are producing, but there was even a pretty big drop off in even bottom line, just the general D1 players weren't really coming from DC's academy. Now I do know that it looks like it's at least somewhat continuing last year's U15 squad, so 06, 07s, they look pretty promising. If people remember the name Ja'Cory Hayes, he is a midfielder at Minnesota United that played at Wake Forest and is from Maryland. His little brother, Braxton Hayes, is actually in DC United's academy now. I think he's in 2007. So he's just called in the U15 boys camp, national team camp. Gavin Turner is another name. And Owen Walls is from the, I think, current Loudencrops, slated to go to UVA this year next. There's a couple players going to Maryland. And for even, and part of the reason why some of these guys weren't even going to D1 schools is that DC was signing them. Jeremy Garay, however you pronounce his name, apologies, and Jacob Green were both slated to go to, UVA, NC State in Maryland, and they obviously went pro. So, that's worth pointing out for sure. But keep spending money, hire the right people, and keep trying. And there's enough people in this area that you should be a, middle of the pack academy at minimum.
Yeah. Travis mentioned the new academy director, Patrick, I think, Ukama. That just reminds me to encourage you guys to listen to the episode of Pitch Pass that Roach did with him. It is one of the more awkward interviews that I have ever heard in my life. It is amazing. I really go. It's 45 minutes. It's 48 minutes. It's like audio Curb Your Enthusiasm for DC United. It is aggressively cringy. Not due to anyone's fault, but just the dynamic is bizarre. Check it out and get back to me. I encourage you, if you haven't listened to it, please do so. Obviously, Roach is on a once a quarter podcast cycle, so it's last episode came out in September. Check it out.
Travis, thanks so much for joining us, man. Travis from TopDrawerSoccer.com. Continue the awesome work you do, covering the side of the game that many of us have no ability to watch, and you're out there hustling and doing the work, and we really appreciate it and appreciate your insight as well. So thanks for joining us.
And this is the part I point out that you forgot where I worked, right?
Now you'll never forget.
never let me forget. Never let me forget. I do apologize for that.
No, I'm giving you a hard time.
As you do, Travis.
It just had to do it. I'm sorry, but I appreciate being on. I'm happy to come on anytime.
Oh, I should tell the story when I was. I should tell the story when I was refereeing the ECNL in Richmond, and you were yelling at me about how horrible of a ref I was. Should I do that? I should do that. Kidding. He was completely cordial. Thanks, Travis.
No problem,
so
guys.
The last time Travis was on, if for eagle-eyed listeners are remembering of the show, my power went out and the show was canceled right in the middle. And Travis was my guest co-host, and he was just standing there podcast? So it went better this time.
Yes, went better.
We did not lose power. Thanks again to Travis. There is literally no way that I could be informed about college soccer. There's just not enough RAM in the computer for my brain. It cannot happen. So we appreciate every time he comes on. But we also wanted to cover here. There's a little bit of DC United news, not a lot. We continue to be waiting for the shoes to drop, the positive shoes to drop.
Yes.
Right now, not really. That's not really happening.
No, it's. There've been some rumors. I guess I don't think we had this on our rundown, but I mean they've been linked to a few players. They have linked to one player out. I forget out. It's been a lot of dribble. I do have some theories about maybe why things have been a little bit more quiet. DC is not a well covered team. There is, and even they used to have obviously Pablo Maurer, who's based in the area, who was the beat writer for The Athletic. Now it's just Steve Goff. I would hedge to bet that some of the stories that Pablo put out maybe turned some people off, and maybe his sources. And also there's been a lot of change and turnover in the team as well. So I wonder if the sources are still there for him, for someone who's not as heavily involved. But I think that has something to do with it.
He's still a beat presence. He's still sort of covering on the, but who knows? That's possible.
His content for DC has dropped a little bit. Like you're not seeing the regular.
I don't think there are clicks there, right? Like I think
fair.
Based on I think he could write about Pele's shoes that he bought on eBay. And it'll do 4 times the traffic. So I think that it's a numbers game. I will bet you dollars to donuts if I were to get him off the record.
It is more interesting to find the 2 other crew guys than it is to find DC's next signing.
Trust us, as DC United fan podcasts, people who have access to our metrics, there are subjects that have a wider appeal than DC United. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
There have been some moves for DC United, so we do want to make sure that we cover those. The long rumored signing of Brendan Hines-Ike came to fruition. Finalized a transfer. The fee is unknown. It's dependent on performance and appearances in the next year, which is great. I think the signing, his signing finally elicited some interesting fan disagreement about what kind of player he was, and is he a nailed on starter, and how good really was he last year. What's your take on him as a player and where he fits in next year and in years to come?
I think he's a penciled in starter based on the fact that Pines is kind of riding that, and obviously Nahar's a penned in starter. You need that. Nahar's not going to be able to play 34 games. I think we've already said that. Nope. The schedule is more favorable this year, thankfully. I think we'll get a little more production out of Andy Nahar this season, because I think the schedule is going to be more of a week-to-week schedule. But I think he's in there. I think it's been brought up too. I think the most important thing is he's not as effective, I guess, at Andy Nahar, but he does have an ability to get forward. So he does give us that avenue. And, I'll say this team, when he went down with an injury, that's when this team started to kind of run out of steam. I won't say he wasn't completely entirely a part of that, but this team started to struggle a little bit. I think they were fine for a little bit, and then I think then the legs started to get heavy. They started to be sloppier in defense. They started to give up some goals. I think a lot of that sort of coincided with his gone. So I'm happy he's back. I'm happy he's signed. I think they need more depth. I think they need at least one more person at that position, but it's not a dire need as it was, I guess, at the beginning of the season. So I'm happy he signed. I think it's worth it. They got a deal on him. I mean, they did. They don't have to pay anything, and it's all based on how well he does, is what the fees are. So it couldn't have been much. And I think his Belgian team was like, yeah, we want to move on. We want to move on from him. So
we got a question in the comments. Mr. McGlue wants to know how much is the variable transfer fee a suggestion. His health in regards to the hip injury may not be well known yet. I think that's likely. If you listen to him talk about the injury, basically he decided not to have surgery it was a hip fracture. I don't know the exact terminology, but it was a hip fracture. He decided to have no surgery and rehab it, and was able to get back and played at the end of the season. He said in an interview recently that were he to have that surgery, his career would have probably been over. So the fact that looms over him still, I think that's why DC United was sort of hesitant to pay full up front. DC United never likes to pay up front in general. They like to loan with an option to buy, and then when it comes time, when the check hits the table, they want to negotiate it again. That is sort of the way they do things. So I think the viewer is right that that's probably something to do with it. To Ted's point, I think his absence, his injury, exposed the depth a little bit. It moved everybody up one spot. It put Donovan Pines on the field a lot. It made Tony Alfaro play more than maybe you would have wanted them to play. And I think there are at least, two center backs need to come in. I think that would be based on the availability and in Har, the uncertain long-term health of Brendan Hines-Ike. Steve Birnbaum's good for an injury a year, at least, or a concussion. At least that's, knock on wood, that seems to have stopped. But that's a position that's despite having probably the most players in it, I think it's still not very settled. I don't think you have the final incarnation of what you want there.
Yeah, and they are playing a 3-man back line. Assuming they play the exact same formation that they played this season, they are playing a 3-man back line. I think you'd be good with one more. I think they'll bring in some more. I think you'll see them bring in some more talent. I think maybe 2 might be a safety option, depending on the roster. But let's move on. Want to move on real quick? Let's see if anything else you want to add about.
No, we got to talk about the Estonian Messi.
The Estonian Messi. Was he actually called that, or did we just call him that?
We invented that. Yeah, I honestly think we invented that. But maybe not.
I think we had so many, like we had the, what was it, the Thailand Messi or something like that, or like we had the Haitian Messi at one point, I'm pretty sure, or rumored to sign him. So I think we just kind of started tacking that on, like the country insert country here that isn't a world power Messi, and that was what we went with. Eric Sorga sold rumored sale for about $500,000. I'll go ahead and say that's probably about right. So
that's what we paid. So that would mean more. We evened out. Except for inflation, we lost 6.8%.
Yeah, well, actually, except for inflation, and also I think the DC gets 95% of that sale, and I think it's they can. Well, I think the biggest reason they made that sale and why I'm a little bit interested, because you can actually take a lot of that and convert it into GAM. So this seemed like it may be an easy way to get some GAM into this roster to help make it easier. Frees up an international slot too, so that's certainly worth it from that perspective. I think DC now has 2 open international slots. We'll get into the other trade here. I'm feeling like something has to be happening. I don't know if we'll see a post-draft or whatever, but I think this team is preparing to make. I hopefully on a DP level, they are saying they want to fill that third designated player spot. I think they have to. That is one of my big. Is this offseason a success? Is if they fill that roster slot? Could they need something else in there? And they might be looking at it at the position where they had a Golden Boot winner. Anything else you want to talk about with Sorga? About his tenure here? I was a little more like lukewarm on him. A lot of people loved him, I think, because of his goal for Red Bulls. I thought he was okay. I thought Robertha showed more. I think this year was Robertha versus Sorga, and I think Robertha won, and that's why Sorga's gone. So
yeah, certainly. No, I had no love for Eric Sorga, and we didn't say who he went to. It's his name is certainly a mouthful.
I wasn't going to attempt that. I mean,
I know.
Once I blew where Travis Clark wrote for, I said, you know what? I'm gonna keep it safe.
I'm gonna go out here. I'm gonna go out here on a rope. I believe it's in the Sweden top division. IFK Göteborg. That's my Swedish chef version of what the name is. First division team. Good luck to him. He scored 3 goals at Venlo last year. He looked like he was going to score every game, because he scored in the first. I think he scored in his first 3 games he played, and then he went cold. But there is. I don't. It's fine. Eric Sorga, good luck to you. I'm not torn up about this at all. I think we'll definitely fill that spot with a player that maybe better fits. What is being asked of him. There was technical challenges for Eric. If you just watched him, if you watched how he pressed, and how he would not be able to get out of pressure when he did receive the ball, was never going to work.
Yeah.
One last person leaving.
Zach Thornton.
Zach Thornton, goalkeeper coach, who has been here for quite a little while, is hit the door. I think that was the writing was on the wall for that. Chad Ashton's contract is also up this year. Last I recall, he is not. It's not been said that he's left yet, but he might. It might also happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, someone made a comment about Bill potentially being mad about that. I think goalkeeping coaches should change every once in a while. I think particularly the goalkeeper that's been here as long as Bill, to keep things fresh, to try to find new ways to train, new ways to stay sharp, potentially impart new lessons. Maybe that's naive, and some clubs. I think Chelsea had Christoph Lolachon for like 10 or 12 years, so they didn't do that. But I think there is some value in sort of changing up assistants to get new voices in the locker room and in the players' heads. But he is now gone.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean that Bill we will certainly know. I think based on certain things whether Bill is happy. He does not. He wears his.
He'll let us know.
Yeah, he'll let us know either through social media or not or whatnot or however. But yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right to that fact. I think I'm excited for maybe a bit of a different refresh in the coaching staff. Obviously the refresh at head coach was incredibly good and last season. So let's one more.
Hernan has had a refresh of a vacation this whole offseason. If you're following him on Instagram, and I know that you are if you're listening to the show, man's having a good time.
Yeah.
Man's going to be sun tanned and ready to go and rested here in February.
Yep. And obviously one of the players who might be out, who maybe he has a say in trying to get out, and why I think maybe that third DP is looking on the attacking end. Ole Kamara apparently DC is looking to trade him, and they are opening that was sort of the news dropped by Stephen Golf. They are currently exploring trade options for him. We'll see how this goes. It feels weird to want to trade a guy who had 19 goals. I guess there was sort of a very mixed reaction. A lot of people were like, well, he could put away 30 or 40 goals if he could have, and I tend to kind of take that with, well, yes, okay, if he's, Lionel Messi, I'm sure, but the players, general good attackers, you put 19 goals away, I don't care if it's penalties, you're a pretty good attacker. I've been on the Ole Kamara bandwagon for years. I got off it, and then he started to score, and I got right back on it. I was very happy to see him have the moments he had, because I really thought he could be an effective piece for DC. That being said, I'm intrigued what DC is doing this offseason, because this is a team. I can't help but think they have to have ideas on who they're going to replace them with. They have to be close to getting some signings in. Otherwise, you're not making these moves. You're holding on to everybody you can and maybe making some additional moves. So they're now down to, what was it, 20 players? 20
Yep.
players this offseason. So they've got some signings that need to come in. Obviously, they'll have their draft pick. We'll see. Maybe they bring somebody in. But they need to make signings. They are not going into the season with 20 players. They need to go out and make signings.
So Ole Kamara, just to tie a bow on Ole's 2021, Ole had 16.3 expected goals for his 19 goals scored. So that's something for that. He was 79th percentile in non-penalty goals. The Ola Penmara thing was a thing for a little bit, particularly for fans that were mad that he was in the lead in the Golden Boot. But he averaged half a goal per 90 non-penalty goals, which is great. Still good for a striker. He was also 80th percentile in the league in aerials won. So the man, he has his weaknesses, he has his strengths. I don't blame them at all for trying to cash in a little bit on his value here, particularly in a contract year. He's got one more year on his contract. Mm-hmm. He explicitly said, this cracked me up. And there was an interview with him last offseason talking about the fact that he was like, oh, I have a contract coming up. I should try harder. I should really give it a go. He's like, my plan wasn't to be this good this year. It was to be really good next year, but I'm good this year. That was basically what he said. I think it was an interview with Pablo. I was like, man, that is honest. That is so honest. But yes, if you can get value for him, and you have like you just said, Ted, you got to have somebody in mind. You got to have somebody that's close to the door. There are people panicking on Twitter. There are people panicking on Discord.
It's the usual off-season trend with a lot of fans.
There's no way that this team is just letting everybody go and then they don't have a plan. There's a plan. The plan is to have a full roster. The plan is to have another designated player. They're exploring other options in the trade markets. They'll see what's available. You have been very confident in this team by the fact that they have spent money. They brought Lucy Rushton and they've spent money in the scouting department. They've committed to that. So let's see what they can do for a season. I'm with you. I'm in that boat. This team has not disappointed me yet. Mm-hmm. So let's see what. I was not impressed with last year's offseason, but there were extenuating circumstances with COVID and money. there are people in the stands now. I bought a season ticket, so there's some money. Like, now go spend that money in this offseason, see what you can do, both in this window and in the summer one. And then we can really start to evaluate, what DC looks like with this new sort of front office leadership.
Yeah, my big, and I feel like I understand the sentiment. You're hearing all these signings happen. We maybe we'll touch a little bit into some of the MLS signings that have happened thus far. You hear all these players getting signed, and your team's not doing anything, and you get nervous. You're like, oh, we need to bring somebody in. We need to bring somebody in. We still have We're still not even a month until the season starts. Training camps just getting started. You can sign players through March. Everyone take a deep breath. And I always evaluate. We'll evaluate once we get to the start of the season. If it's disappointing, trust me, we will tell you if we feel it's disappointing. But I think the way that they are moving things out, they are setting themselves up, acquiring allocation money and other things to sort of replace some of those players, and they have to go do it. One player we're still waiting. Like I keep thinking that Ted Kudu-Pietro has been signed. Apparently, it's still not. The ink has not been. Like I said, hasn't dried enough on that. So we'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, we talked.
It will happen though. We're not wrong.
Yeah,
It will happen. I promise.
Yeah, but obviously, good to see him getting signed. We've talked a bit about it. One of the better players on a bad team. There was a brief moment of excitement for DC fans when they thought maybe we could snag Albert Rusnak. He is going to Seattle.
I believe I said, as soon as Seattle was in the conversation, that he is not coming here, and I'm correct. That's fine.
I thought maybe there was a chance, but that's been the only, I guess, concrete rumor that sort of came through about a player possibly coming here. Again, I think there was also, I saw one rumor about like some Belgian. I think there was either a wing back or a winger from Belgium, and that piqued a lot of attention.
There was one rumor that got pretty far down the line of Yaya Boa.
Yeah.
Who was for sure coming to DC United, and then in fact on January 6th signed with Colorado or Columbus for the 3-year contract.
I'm not sure. Something smelled fishy about that. A lot of people got upset about that move too. I think everybody really doesn't want Edison Flores in here.
They don't.
Everybody wants Edison Flores, but we'll see. We'll see. Again, I think Edison Flores is going to get a run out to the summer. We'll see what happens there. Other moves around the league, I think we do have to talk about it. Daryl DK going $10 million to West Bromwich Albion. Huge sale for them. You talk about player sales. Orlando are looking, I think, to flip that. They're apparently going to buy Facundo Torres from Uruguay for $10 million plus $2 million in incentives. So using that sale to invest right back into their squad. And of course, the big story of the day was Ricardo Pepi in a last minute move going for $20 million to Augsburg. So huge move for him. I think he had an appearance in the game and apparently looked pretty well from what I understand. The big signing, of course, is TFC signed Lorenzo Insigne, $15 million a year. Absolutely.
A year.
Yeah, absolutely massive use. A guy who just finished winning the European Championships, may or may not play in a World Cup. They still got to get through the playoff. John, as someone who's a fan of another team who can only dream of owners that are willing to spend that, what do you think about this? Oh, I didn't get to the funnier story. We'll get to the funny. Thank you, Blades Worldies. We'll get to that story in a minute because that's hilarious to me.
Yeah, I mean it's the dream, really. I think having the Maple Leaf, I don't remember, the Toronto Sports Entertainment, whatever they're called. They also own the Maple Leafs.
Maple Leaf Sports. Anytime someone says MLSE, I'm like, oh, that's right. It's Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment is what it's called. It's
nice to have a team ownership that prints money in a hockey-obsessed universe that is Toronto Maple Leafs fans. It's nice to have that backing. What I love, we'd love it. I mean, we had Wayne Rooney. Wayne Rooney's our version of that. He's like the Kirkland's brand Insigne.
Yeah.
And that he is a huge name that will draw on people, but was old and basically retired very shortly after leaving the team. That's just not our lot, right?
Yeah.
It's never going to be our lot. It never, ever will be. So it's best to have realistic expectations as a DC United fan. Times have changed. If you were here since 96 and you still have that sort of in your brain, flush it out of your brain. It's no longer there. You're not that. That is not you. Look at any league and look at teams in the middle of the table, and that's who we are. That's what the spend is. That's what the hopes are, and you might get lucky, luckily for us, though, the difference between MLS and, say, the EPL is that those teams in the middle can win.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible. NYCFC 2 years ago, you would not have. Last year, you wouldn't have said that they were gonna make a run and win the whole league. So, yeah, it's a bummer, but I get it. The funny stat there is that he's making $15 million a year, and DC United's contract, all of the players were $12 million for the last year. So there's that. Luckily, we don't play them unless we get to the playoffs.
Yep.
So
and yeah, we won't play the $15 million player unless we make the playoffs. I think someone already dropped that stat for us, so appreciate it to them. Yeah, I mean, I guess it is. It's good. I think it's good the league is spending this money. I hope it drives DC to spend a little more. I hope it pushes them maybe to say, okay, let's go out and let's get that third designated player. Let's spend that money. I think you can still win. This team still has a lot of work. I think this team is still going. The TFC team is still going to finish fourth. They have Insigne. That doesn't mean they're going to blow away the league, because right now their defense is very suspect. They've got
Bob Bradley now.
Yeah,
so
exactly. They have a good coach, and those types of players will bring people in. But this team still has a lot of work to do. I think you'll have a first-year Javinko type of year from TFC. I think they'll bounce back. They're going to be tougher, but I think they will bounce back a little bit.
5'4", this man, Insigne. They love the short playmakers and goal scorers in Toronto. But there have been other moves. I was just sort of looking at the transaction page before we go. Raheem Edwards was another player that potentially was DC United was looking at. He signed with LA. Drew Moore, I think, is now 75 years old and signed another year to play in Colorado. So good for him. I'm just trying to. There haven't been a lot of huge moves yet. Sort of like power shifting moves. The NWSL, a lot more of that than MLS. I think a lot of that is still to come. Yeah, nothing really worth highlighting. Omar Gonzalez going to New England for 2 years is interesting to me. And then maybe that's probably it.
Sebastian Lletget also was traded. That was kind of an interesting move.
The rich get richer there in New England. I think Bruce Arena knows him. Probably coached him. Was he there when he was? Probably did.
Yeah.
So that's a tough team. If you're looking at teams. So obviously early days, you're looking at who's the teams to be afraid of in the Eastern Conference.
I think
New England's right there.
I do think.
So,
I think this is if New England cannot find a way to win an MLS Cup. I surely believe. I don't think it'll happen. I really don't. I think they're not gonna get the 3-week layoff that they got last
that
time.
did not help.
That did not help them for sure. Also want to bring LAFC signed Steve Cherundolo as a head coach. So a little bit. An interesting move. He's been a assistant at Stuttgart forever. So, but good for him to see that. We didn't talk about the funniest trade so far of the day. Was FC Dallas trading for the rights. They got the 3rd round pick in the draft, $50K in allocation money, and then the rights to Dom Dwyer that they eventually just said we were going to pay him off and release him. So Dom Dwyer is now a free agent. Did you see this move? You didn't see this?
I thought he got released from Toronto FC. He was an FC Dallas player?
No. So it's an MLS trade is basically that they traded with Toronto for the rights for Dom Dwyer. And then FC Dallas got the rights to Dom Dwyer. And then FC Dallas then used their one buyout contract option to buy out Dom Dwyer. Yes, you did.
That is... No, I did not see that. That's insane. This seems like an NFT money laundering situation here. That trade does not make sense. Money is being washed here. This call Interpol. This is not making any sense.
Well, I think it's who knows who actually paid them. Like, I don't know. Like, do you use GAM for that, or you just use your own money? The contract couldn't have been that big. I had to imagine it had to be like some type of like, basically like TFC's like, well, we'll give you this 3rd round pick for 150K in allocation, or we'll give it 50K, take Dom Dwyer for our plates, do what you want with him, buy him out, whatever you want to do. And basically the idea was to buy him out. So.
Blade's got it here. It was a basketball style contract where his contract was bundled with another player to sort of as a make weight. It was like a mid-level exception. They were really doing some salary cap shenanigans. Anyway, basically here's where we are. It hasn't happened yet. And MLS player moves have not happened. DC United saying goodbye, not saying hello yet. They're going to. Training camp starts next month. The season starts next month.
Yeah.
The season will be it'll be cold as hell. Trey, I know you're listening. if I'm there opening day, we need to have a really, really big beer coat because it's going to be really cold. It's going to be really,
it's
really
going to be
cold.
2020. We did it at February 29th before all the craziness happened. So, yeah, it should be fun, guys. We're looking forward to the season, looking forward to the future of the show. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will catch you guys next week. I think we're going to try to come back next week. Vamos.
Vamos.